Welcome back to my animal education series. Today I'm at the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge here with Michelle. Hello.
Hey, Cole.
So today we're talking about the Gopher Tortoise, which was behind us before I went right into the burrow, so now it's not a camera shot. But thank God that he got a bunch of extra footage of the tortoise so we could put it on the screen, since he does not want to be on camera right now.
A little camera shy.
So how long has this tortoise been here at the facility?
So the Gopher Tortoise we have here, he's one of our animal ambassadors. We've had him since about 2010, which is long before I started working here. But his story is based off of being collided with a vehicle, so a typical hit by car. And we had to put some plates and screws in to fix his shell, and he was deemed non-releasable shortly after that, due to the threatened species status of our Gopher Tortoises here in the state of Florida. So we've had him ever since, and he's currently our longest ambassador that we've had here.
So do you bring him out for different education programs to teach people about Gopher Tortoises?
Absolutely. Just because our Gopher Tortoises are still considered a threatened species here in the state of Florida, we like to bring them out, and landlord is pretty easygoing, great for kids, great for the nursing homes, and so we're able to take him to almost every education event that we do.
And he seems super gentle. Like he's just walking around, going about on his feet, like no big deal. He's not afraid of people at all.
Nope, he's been doing this what feels like his whole life, so he is all about the education events and all about the people.
And also, I do want to touch on the enclosure that we have behind us here. It is a huge enclosure for one tortoise.
Yeah, well, he does share it with another tortoise, so he's not out here today. But yeah, they do like to roam a lot. They love to dig a lot. So as you can see, they've got their burrows that we've made some man-made ones, so they wouldn't burrow out of their enclosure. So they do need quite a bit of space. When it's summertime, they do a lot of walking around, a lot of perimeter checks.
What adaptations does the Gopher Tortoise have to really help it dig? Because obviously I saw they have some pretty strong looking front legs.
They definitely do. They have some very muscular forelimbs, and they've got some well adapted spikes that you can kind of see closer to the tips of their hands, where that just helps really grip into the sand. Their best habitat is a very soily, sandy habitat to ease into digging into a big burrow. So they need some kind of softer soil in order to make that happen.
Which is perfect down here in Florida because all of the ground is just mostly sand.
Yep.
You can look at the ground right now, it's just a bunch of sand.
Yep, makes it real easy. So they love to dig even in this habitat. So you'll see we have a lot of bricks placed around the perimeters to prevent more digging than what he should be doing.
He's coming back out right now.
Out.
Now he wants to be on camera. So where can these Gopher Tortoises be found out in the wild? You mentioned Florida, sorry.
Yes. Yeah, they can be found, I think, in quite a few states. Every state is different, so just because the Gopher Tortoise is threatened here in the state of Florida, it actually isn't considered threatened as far as I know in Alabama or Georgia. So it does depend geologically on that whole side of things, but for the most part in here, in the state of Florida, they are just in some, like I said, open kind of sandy, soily areas. They don't really need a whole lot of forest areas because they kind of focus more on digging.
What kind of things, you mentioned that they are threatened, what kind of things are threatening their populations?
So one of the biggest thing is Mycoplasmosis, which is an upper respiratory infection for Gopher Tortoises. It's also for other turtles and tortoises as well, but it is very common. Gopher Tortoises greet each other face to face or nose to nose, and that's exactly how that disease gets spread. And so if they're all living in a kind of community together, several burrows, that is how that disease can quickly wipe out a whole little community. There's of course your other typical issues, vehicle collisions and other diseases, but home building and a lot of tourist related things, if new shopping centers goes up, that can take away from their burrows and their homes. So it's kind of all a mixture of all those things together.
Do you guys get Gopher Tortoises here rehabilitated pretty frequently or no?
Yeah, I would say not as often as some of our regular turtles, like our box turtles, but we do see them probably as the second most common reptile that we have come in here.
And what's the most common injury? Probably like a vehicle accident, I imagine?
Yep, most of the time, if they don't come in with symptoms of the Mycoplasma disease, then it's usually injuries due to hit by a car or being chewed on by dogs. So some people, if they do have enough land, they may or may not be aware that they have a Gopher Tortoise on their property, and then a dog is just found chewing on the edge of the carapace, which is the top part of their shell, and so that may lead to some minor injuries that we can very easily treat and just get them back into the wild.
And one thing I noticed on this tortoise I wanted to touch on is how smooth the shell is. Is that like usual for this Gopher Tortoise, or is it due to its age and being in captivity for a while?
Yeah, for him, it's definitely a combination of a lot of things. Gopher tortoises constantly go in and out of their burrows, so that can cause some smoothing of their shell. He's also definitely older than what we would naturally assume. We've had him for about 11 or 12 years. He was an adult when he got here. So a lot of it is just a lot of wear and tear over the years.
What kind of animals would try to eat a Gopher Tortoise?
So there could be a lot of predatory species, like your typical coyotes or foxes that might be interested in trying to, get to him. They're not exactly the easiest prey item since they have their shell that gets in the way, but they can certainly, get to appendages and things like that as well.
And I heard this once, that with the Gopher Tortoise in the state of Florida, you can't even think of touching the Gopher Tortoise. Like, you can't help it across the road, you can't move it out of the way like a lawnmower or anything like that. Is that true?
Sort of. There's definitely a lot of red tape around Gopher tortoises just due to the status that they have here in Florida. The first and foremost thing that I always tell people is if you have any questions, if there's one in your yard and you don't know if there's something you can do or can't do, go ahead and call Florida Fish and Wildlife. They'll be the ones that can legally remove it if it has to be removed. But other than that, nope, you can definitely get in trouble for harassing the Gopher tortoise, purposely injuring it, or harming and destroying any of their burrows. They're all protected under state law.
So let's say I'm going down the road and I see a Gopher Tortoise, I'm allowed to motivate it out of the road.
Yeah,
as long as I don't take it out of its home range.
Right,
or bother it in any other way.
There shouldn't be any issue, that's at least preventing it from possible vehicle collision. So as long as you point any turtle or tortoise, in the same direction it was heading across the street, then everything should be fine. He'll, I assume, go back to where his burrow was, or he might have to cross the street again, but there shouldn't be too big of an issue with that.
But if you aren't 100% sure, just leave it alone. That's like the number one thing with all wildlife. If you don't know what it is or you don't know what to do with it, leave it alone.
Exactly. Just call your state fish and game, conservation commission. Ours is Florida Fish and Wildlife, or call your local rehabber if you're concerned about it being in the middle of the road, or if it has an injury, or if you don't know if it's sick. Some turtles, like these guys, can have certain symptoms, so always call your local rehabber too. They can help get some questions answered.
And that's the entire reason that you guys are here, is to help rehab animals.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been doing it for, I think, 27 years now, since 1994. And we moved from being a kind of home rehabber based, so just working outside of a few people's homes, to finally getting a facility located in Destin, Florida. To then we upgraded to an old kind of rundown fire department station in Fort Walton Beach. And then finally about 2 years ago, we moved out here to Navarre, Florida, where we're on about 2 acres of land, and we have a lot more space to rehabilitate our wildlife and get them released back into the wild, as well as homes for some of our permanent residents, which are our animal ambassadors that we use for education events.
And with the 2 acres here, we can give them awesome enclosures like this with plenty of space to walk around. And because having a lot more space for the tortoises allows them to exercise, and it's plenty of opportunity for enrichment as well. So this is good for all the other animals too. Exactly.
That's our goal here, is getting them the right food, the right habitat space, and enrichment every day, just to keep that mental stimulation, especially for our ambassadors.
I want to wrap up the video with a pretty tough question for you. What is your favorite thing about the Gopher Tortoise?
I think my favorite thing about Gopher tortoises is that they are very welcoming, and that's kind of how Landlord got his name. So Gopher tortoises will use their burrows not just as a home for themselves, but as a home for, I think, about 360 other species, if I'm correct on that number. So I think it's really cool that what they do out in nature doesn't just affect them. They're a keystone species. What they do out in nature kind of is a cascade effect for a lot of other species. So if Gopher tortoises go away and they go extinct, then that can possibly cause the extinction of several other species in their wake.
Because whenever they're done with their burrows, other animals can definitely use it. So it's not just shelter for them, as you said, it's shelter for plenty of other species, like 360, over 360 species, like you said. That's insane amount of animals that can benefit from one species.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's crazy, how one animal just out in the wild can be helping another without even knowing it.
Well, thank you so much for telling us about this awesome tortoise species that we're going to have to dig out of that burrow here in a couple minutes. But and thank you guys so much for watching this week's video. Don't forget to leave a big thumbs up down below, subscribe to my channel, and as always, I will see you next time.